Donald Trump was asked about the summit with North Korean officials, Kim Jong Un specifically, in Singapore. It's coming up very quickly. And he was asked whether or not he is preparing for it. And his answer should alarm you. Take a look.
I think I'm very well prepared. I don't think I have to prepare very much. It's about attitude. It's about willingness to get things done. But I think I've been preparing for the summit for a long time, as has the other side. I think they've been preparing for a long time also. So this isn't a question of preparation. It's a question of whether or not people want it to happen. And we'll know that very quickly.
Okay, so he does not believe he needs to prepare. I mean, he said he's been preparing. He's been preparing for a very long time.
Preparing all his life for this.
He's been preparing for a long time, and as have the North Koreans. Well, about a week ago, on June 1st, Donald Trump had a meeting with Kim Jong Un. He is a senior North Korean official. And after that meeting, he had a press conference and he kind of described in very sophisticated terms how that meeting went and how he plans on proceeding with the North Koreans in the future. Take a look.
One thing I did do, and it was very important, we had hundreds of new sanctions ready to go on. And he did not, the director did not ask, but I said I'm not going to put them on until such time as the talks break down. We have very significant sanctions on now, but we have hundreds that are ready to go. But I said, I'm not going to, but why would I do that when we're talking so nicely? So
they had hundreds of sanctions. Why would he implement those sanctions when he's talking so nicely? Let's take a look at one more video from the same press conference.
Maximum pressure,
it's going to remain what it is now. I don't even want to use the term maximum pressure anymore because I don't want to use that term. Because we're getting along, you see the relationship, we're getting along. So it's not a question of maximum pressure.
Okay. So as recently as May 20th, aides spoke to the New York Times about Trump's preparedness in regard to this meeting, this summit with Kim Jong Un. Let's go to graphic 10. Aides are concerned, again, this is from May 20th, this is recent. Aides are concerned about what kind of grasp Mr. Trump has on the details of the North Korea program and what he must insist upon as the key components of denuclearization. Aides who have recently left the administration say Mr. Trump has resisted the kind of detailed briefings about enrichment capabilities, plutonium reprocessing, nuclear weapons production, and missiles programs. So
he has no instinct to learn any details. We know this. They try to brief him with 3-page briefings. Imagine, it's usually an entire big file folder, but they boil it down to 3 pages in the early days of this administration. But then they were told the president doesn't like to read. Try to boil it down to like 1 page. So they boiled it down to 1 page. And then they were told the president responds better to pictures. This is not some rumor. This is from insiders at the White House. So we know he doesn't have an instinct to learn the details of this highly complicated and very important, sensitive negotiation. But Trump is not wrong. And here's what I mean by that. If you're Trump, you don't need to learn anything because you're only a photo op declaration type president. He's not actually going to do any negotiating. He's going to show up. He's going to shake hands. There are going to be pictures taken. They might even sign something. There'll be declarations of some sort, an intent to reach an agreement. That'll all be traded. He'll grab the headlines and he'll feel good. For that, he doesn't need to prep. And really, that's as deep as Donald Trump gets.
Well, I feel like you're describing a best case scenario because while Trump might not do anything at that particular meeting or summit, remember, a lot of his policy is carried out through social media, through Twitter. Look, I love the fact that he's now taking a much more diplomatic approach to what's going on with North Korea. I think that is the way to go. It's much better than what we were experiencing with Trump early on.
The saber rattling.
Right, where he was constantly insulting Kim Jong Un on social media. I mean, that was not only embarrassing, but incredibly dangerous.
Sure.
And so I'm glad that he's moved away from that. But at the same time, we never know what his mood is going to be or how he's going to approach the situation on any given day. We don't know what he's been watching that day. We don't know who the last person he talked to is. So that's the part that really concerns me. And what you described again is the best case scenario.
Right.
That he approaches it from a diplomatic place, as he has been lately, and doesn't do anything to screw things up during the summit, and we somehow get the North Koreans to concede.
Well, this summit is just a first step to anything, and it would be under probably any president. But what I'm just saying is that he's going through the choreographed motions to have all the pictures taken and go, look, I'm meeting with world leaders on this stuff. Meantime, he's, of course, conceded and given the world stage to a brutal dictator. And you can say, yeah, but maybe it's time for that brutal dictator to evolve to a different place. Let's leave that aside for now. For the point that's front and center, his preparation, probably for this first summit, because it is all ceremonial, he can get away with this. And you're right, though. The devil's in the details, and the details will all be worked out by his henchmen.
Hey, you guys, it's all about attitude. That's it.
And you know, Trump is known for having a great attitude.
Right,
So.
yeah, he has a great attitude. He knows how to make a deal, you know, all those things. I wonder if somebody could just put like a visual graphic, because he only reads visuals, of how many times he says the same exact phrases as like a percentage bubble chart, because then he maybe would understand how repetitive and how just boring he is to listen to.
We're going to implement big sanctions.
And it's a nice talk. It's going to be a nice talk. And this is kind of typical of what he's. This is code. He's speaking code to his base, and his code to his base is, "I carry a big stick." And so that's what they're hearing. They're not hearing that. We need a leader who knows about plutonium reserves. We need a leader who knows what the nuclear discussions and disarmament are being had on a global stage. And they also would definitely not want to point the finger at ourselves and ask ourselves the question how we can go. I know he's a brutal isolationist dictator. And maybe some folks would even dispute that, I don't know. But how we go into a summit in a scenario where we're saying we're gonna put hundreds of sanctions on stopping you to do something we do very actively and do the best in the world, which is building up nuclear reserves.
That's right, yeah. I mean, that is like a hypocritical way of approaching the situation. And the US is well known for that. But, you know, there's also talks of, you know, if this diplomatic route continues to develop, inviting Kim Jong Un to the United States,
right,
which I thought was also pretty fascinating. I don't know how Trump's base feels about that. I don't know how Americans in general feel about that.
Well, he can sell anything to his base. If he says it enough, then they'll be on board with it. But you're right, it's completely uncharted territory.
It is uncharted territory.
Then does that mean also he has to give Iran a diplomatic route as well, or a conversation?
No, there's no
Well, he's surrounded by hawks on Iran in the White House, and that's why Iran will never get their foot in the door.
You know, the Iran nuclear deal and then Trump pulling out of that nuclear deal actually created a conundrum for him. Because remember, I mean, even though he has made it seem as though Iran did not do enough and they didn't concede enough in that nuclear deal, they did. And they conceded much more than, in my opinion, North Korea ever will, right? That is my prediction. But considering that, you know, if he makes a deal with the North Koreans and that deal is not as aggressive as the Iran nuclear deal was, Trump's gonna hear it. He's gonna get the criticism for it.
He'll hear it around re-election time. I don't know that his base will focus on it in that granular way that will really reveal the details, the same way they didn't focus on the granular aspects of the Iran nuclear deal. Most of his base couldn't tell you anything about it, when, as you say, it was actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I mean, you have people going into Iran, constantly monitoring them. They give up 97% of their nuclear materials. I mean,
the type of verification that was going to go on, as Anna says, is the sort of thing that you can't do a bait and switch with the plutonium. It's just you just can't move these fissionable materials around Iran too quickly. So the deal that was in place really made it hard for them to cheat. Yet Trump's just about talking points, so he can tell you how bad the deal was.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.